Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. Had an eventful weekend. I know some people are probably pumped up for this episode after Michigan lost to TCU, but I'll be honest, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be disappointed because I got some good news for you, Matt. Here, let me just bust this out. Top Gun, baby, is back in session. Three-time fantasy football champ, Matt. It happened. I think I spent the entire show complaining last week about my team. And I will say that the NFL, their new expanded schedule, I still have a beef with it. Because they added the extra week, right? But they added 2 extra bye weeks. So in an 8-team playoff, you need 3 weeks of NFL games for fantasy. And I know that they added this extra week to also help with like gambling and TV. No. There were teams just flat out resting players. Like, do you know how nerve-wracking it is to find out on Thursday that Derrick Henry's not going to play? Your guy. Like, my guy. My number one guy, the guy I paid the most for. I know he wasn't number one in scoring on my team, especially after Austin Eckler saved my ass with a 31-point game, right? So Derrick Henry decides that he's not playing because he needs to rest, Matt, because the game is meaningless. So I'm in full panic mode. I talked about it last week. I had a bad feeling. As soon as that happened, I thought, well, we're going to hit the trifecta, Matt. 3 bad things in a row. Derrick Henry's not going to play. I'm going to lose my fantasy. I had a bad feeling that Michigan was going to lose. I was telling people, I went to the Mayo Bowl and everyone kept asking, like, you think you're going to win? I'm like, no, I have a bad feeling we're going to lose. Like, I just had that bad weekend, and I honestly thought that the Packers were going to be eliminated from the playoffs, right? And one of the 3 happened. The Michigan lost, but the Packers are still alive, and my fantasy team got it done. Because for some reason, the guy played, his team performed even worse in higher stakes games. So, like, just going down the roster, and I know this might be boring for people, but I had a lot of people message me about, because I talked fantasy last week, and they were, we got a lot of interactions, people asking about it. Because I talked about, like, what do you do in this situation? Because I'm not the only one affected, right? Derrick Henry sitting out probably cost someone their championship. I would think that most leagues, the way the bye weeks are, you couldn't have your playoffs start on a bye week, right? That would be insane because not every team is going to have someone out. So going in, this is like the championship week for, I think, almost every fantasy league. The Jaguars, we'll start with them. On my shit list, Matt. If the Titans and the Jaguars could both have a tie and neither of them make the playoffs, that's what I would want to happen this weekend. Because the Jaguars said, hey, we're going to play our starters and we're going to play it hard because we're a franchise that like loses a lot. And we want to build a winning culture, right? Nah. They let Trevor Lawrence throw Christian Kirk his 1,000th, if I can even say it, yard receiving, right? And then they both got benched. They both had 4 points total. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I had to hedge my bets. It actually would have been better if I would have stuck with my original plan of playing Deshaun Watson because he went off. But they were playing the Commanders, right? Washington. Did you see Ron Rivera's statements? About
he didn't realize that they were.
Yeah, I'm watching. I'm looking at my team, and I'm like, can I really play a Cleveland player, right? Because they're playing Washington. Washington has to come out and just be focused in this game. No, they weren't. I put in Cooper because I had to, because I want to take credit and say, like, I put in Cooper on like a smart play. I really only put in Cooper because he's the only other receiver that I had that was healthy. Chris Olave was questionable again, and I think he ended up getting 8 points, but I couldn't risk it. I had to play Cooper, and he went off, got 25 points. Deshaun Watson would have had 21. So if I would have stuck to my guns, Matt, my team would have really scored even more than what they did. Because Eckler went off, Chris Godwin and Devonta Smith went off. I still played the wrong tight end. Cole Kmet had 10 points. He had a touchdown, and I thought, I got it. I had to have played the right guy. Nope. Tyler Conklin had 14. So, shit move. I did hedge my bets by picking up the Jaguars defense, which paid off, because I figured they're not going to, even if their starters play, if they pull the starters, they have to have a big lead, and that's exactly what happened. So, I feel bad for other guys because I know I wasn't the only one affected. And then even worse, the NFL game last night, where and I didn't even change the topic on here to resting players, but Damar Hamlin for the Bills, it looked like a routine tackle. Where was it? Chase kind of caught him close, where he looked like he put his helmet into his chest, where Hamlin couldn't like get his shoulder down and stopped his heart. So when he went down, he jumped right back up. And then he immediately passed out. So they had to give him CPR for what they say, like 8 minutes on the field.
Yeah.
And then the ambulance came out. And, I mean, it was scary. I'm kind of surprised that they postponed the game. Not because of the player injury, but because, like, the NFL came out and they were like, no, we weren't really trying to get them to play the game. But I guarantee they were. Because that game had significant impacts on the playoff seeding. If the Bills were to win, I think they would be the number 1 seed with the bye. If they give them both teams a tie, then the Chiefs take the number 1 seed. And so the NFL's in a weird spot here because, I mean, the public's going to roast them if they give the Bills a loss, right? Because they were losing at the point. It was 7-3, I think. And I don't know what they can do with this expanded playoff week. But like if I were a player and that happened where it's like you're watching the guy get CPR and they bring the ambulance out on the field. It was almost like the Ryan Shazier thing. Which Shazier, he was responsive though, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Because I think Schefter said he never saw an ambulance on the field, but I was like, did Shazier have an ambulance? Because they or did they?
He might have, but I think with his, like, you knew that it was going to be bad. Like, it wasn't like paramedics working on somebody bad.
Yeah, that's true. Because I was trying to think,
they were working on him on the field. Like, kudos to the medical staff that worked on him and started doing CPR like immediately, because it probably saved his life.
And that's that probably. I mean, we haven't heard an update, but hopefully he's able to get fully back and recover, because I mean he's a young kid, went to Pitt. I think this is his second year, right? I think.
Yeah.
So tough. They say he's an all-around great guy. I've never met him, so I can't comment on any of that. But I will say that the NFL, like, they're in a bad spot because they initially announced that teams had 5 minutes to warm up and get back out there. It's like, yeah. And then they were like, no, we didn't really say that. And then people were like praising the Bengals coach for saying that if the Bills didn't want to play, they didn't have to. But like his team had the lead. So how do we know that he had like strong intentions that were good, right? We don't know that. Because it's a big game for them too. If the Chiefs were to lose, then I think that gives the Bengals a chance for the number 1 seed. I don't know the exact tiebreaker scenario. I think they were all pretty close, those 3 teams. And so they almost got help too. Because I was playing a bunch of Chiefs players, and the Broncos, Matt, came out of nowhere and almost won that game. Kept the Chiefs in check for me. And so I'd like to thank you, Broncos. That was a really, really great game. I really appreciated it. And my man Tom Brady, too. He battled back. And I was playing against their kicker, Tampa Bay's kicker. He missed like 3 kicks, which is insane. I was like, every time I went to kick, I was like, oh, this isn't going to be good. And then he missed. And Tom Brady let Carolina have a chance to come down and kick a field goal, which gave me 4 points. I appreciate that, Tom. That's really nice of you. But I don't know. I don't know what the NFL does going forward with their scheduling and I mean, with the player safety. I was going to put targeting calls on here, but I'm going to save that for some of the college talk because that play wasn't really targeting. There was another one. Was it in the same game? I'm trying to think because I sent a tweet out about the targeting because the guy put his head down and did I text it to you? He put his head down and they were like, nah, not targeting. But like, to me, they talk about the crown of the head. It was yesterday. So yeah, I did text you. Oh, that must have been the USC game. Yeah, the USC hit where he came in. I guess it was college, so maybe I should save it. But like the NFL is talking about player safety and this and that. And yeah, they have the great medical professionals. And it always annoys me whenever the TV guy says like, well, other than a hospital, this would be the best place to have your heart stop. It's like, is that true? Like, is anyone thinking that, buddy? They're like, thank God he's playing football when his heart stopped. Like, nah. Like, way to downplay the moment. But I don't know. As a coach, what were your thoughts? Like, because, I mean, there's nothing really a coach can do in that situation.
I just was amazed, like with watching the highlights, and as fast as they started to work on them, that just I don't think there was anything that you could do.
You must have watched too much Big Ten football where they always jerk around and let the guy, like, was it Mike Hart had a seizure this year? They're just like, it's like laying on the sideline first before someone gets to him. Or like Jerry Kill, too, where he goes down and they just keep coaching around him. But, I mean, I'm not trying to make light of the situation. I think it's scary. I'm not surprised the players didn't want to play. Like I said, I wouldn't have wanted to play. And so it's in the NFL's hands now because you also can't let a player injury like that hurt the team. I don't see how they can let that hurt the Bills in their playoff positioning, right? A lot of people had the Bills as their number one seed overall. Could they lose to the Bengals? Absolutely. They could lose to them because the Bengals are a great team too. But I think you have to give them the chance. And now it's like a question of when, right? Because going back to the Jaguars, Matt, the audacity of their fans. Did you know that they were complaining about the schedule this week? Because the Titans played on Thursday against the Cowboys, and they rested their players, right? So they scheduled the Jaguars Titans on Saturday. And so the Jaguars now have less than a full week to get ready for their must-win playoff game. And it's like, you rested players too, though. You told the NFL you weren't going to rest players, and your players only played like a quarter or two. Like, you rested guys. So if the NFL is looking at it and other teams didn't rest their guys, like Eckler, he could have rested, Matt. They were up big, 31-10. He was still running the ball late in the game, right? So if you're the NFL and you're like, hey, one team's running dudes around that they don't have to play. Detroit, still running the score up. They end up like scoring 41. I know they're still like playing for a playoff spot. The Chargers didn't, like they're already locked in. Not really much movement they can have other than like a 5 or whatever. And you don't know what the other teams are going to do. But like Jaguars, hey, yeah, we made a big statement about how we're going to play our guys and build a culture of winning. And yeah, they had a big lead, but they didn't play their guys. So I think the NFL is in their right to say, like, if all you have to say is say nothing. Don't say you're going to play your guys. Say, like, yeah, we're going to rest them if we need to. They rested them. I see no problem in them having to play Saturday night. Like I said, I don't care if they lose either. Trevor Lawrence lost some respect. I should have went with Minshew Magic, even though they couldn't get it done either. So I don't know. What stood out to you other than the injury stuff and NFL this weekend?
That was really the big thing. Because I was more wrapped up with watching a lot of the college games. So at this point, it's like we're close to being at that point where, like, they're resting people, and a lot of those bigger seeds are already locked in.
Yeah, honestly, like I said, it came down to fantasy for me, where it's like the scheduling was weird. I mentioned the Texans played on Thursday. The tough part with my guy sitting out, I couldn't pick up Hassan Haskins, right? The Titans backup, because they didn't know if he was going to play. When they announced Derrick Henry wasn't going to play, they said that he was doubtful. And then they used him in the promo for the game. Like, it was almost comical, Matt, because I was going out to like the Mayo Bowl on Friday, and everywhere I looked, every commercial was Derrick Henry running the ball. Watch the Dallas Cowboys take on the Titans. I'm like, he's not even playing. Like, what kind of false advertising is this where you have like literally no highlights of anyone else on the Titans to show? So you're going to show a bunch of highlights of a guy that's not even playing in the game. And if I wasn't locked in, like let's say the bowl game I was going to was on Thursday and I wasn't like checking all day, who knows if I would have accidentally kept him in my lineup. It wouldn't have ended up mattering because of Eckler going off, but I mean, wouldn't that be a bummer? Like I said, I guarantee some people lose their championship game because of that. Because like, who are you going to pick up? You don't know. I picked up Royce Freeman, the Texans running back. He had 6 points. I ended up playing Stevenson, who also had 6. And I think Hassan Haskins would have been the better play at 7. But like I said, I had no way to play him because like I didn't know if other guys were going to play, you know. Because my other play would have been to pick up the Chargers backup running back, Kelly, I think. Is that who the backup is?
I think.
Because they were like saying that they might not play Eckler, and I thought, are you serious? I'm going to have my best 2 running backs out, and yet I can't really pick up their backup until like I know for sure. So annoying. That's what annoyed me with the NFL. I also don't know, like, in terms of like some of the younger like teams like that I'm supposed to be watching, like the 49ers, like they're playing hot, but like, should you be excited about Brock Purdy? I mean, Iowa State kind of sucked this year, so maybe he was behind their success and not so much Matt Campbell, right?
You could say that.
So like, maybe he's just gonna be good. Wouldn't it be funny if like, wasn't he like the Mr. Irrelevant? What if he is like the next Tom Brady? Where it's like, hey, yeah, I came out of nowhere and I had all these like touchdowns and stuff because I'm the next guy. I'm the next Tom Brady. But I don't know. NFL stuff, that's kind of my beef. Just wanted to brag about my championship. My Packers are still alive. They're playing the Lions at home. So I'm excited about that. I also found out, Matt, that shareholders can get their own Super Bowl ring. So I hope that that's a real thing because I would love to have one of those to go with my fantasy championship ring, which is still on the way, by the way. And I really wanted this year's championship ring because it was 2 helmets that were cracked. And we had a logo like that back in the Antonio Brown days of our show. And I thought this would be fitting if I won this ring. And then I thought, when all my guys were like not playing, I thought, well, what a bummer. So close. Stevenson got hurt in the regular season championships. I would have missed out on that. And then all my guys aren't going to play, and I'm going to miss it out. But thank you, Cooper, Smith, Eckler, playing it, Godwin. I mean, Godwin, they kept feeding him. Godwin had 21. Mike Evans had to have, 40-something? He had like 3 touchdowns. Thank God I didn't have to play him. That actually
surprised me that he went off as much as he did.
Have you been watching them? Him and Tom Brady have been so out of sync, it's painful to watch. Because I actually went back through the bids, because I've had Mike Evans for like 3 years in a row or something like that. Like, I always end up with Mike Evans because it always seems like he gets touchdowns, but he's not consistent. So I always like to throw him as a flex because, like, you never know when you need a touchdown, right? But all year, they even showed highlights of, like, I think it was last game, where he was wide open on, like, a post and just dropped the ball. And I thought, is he done? But Yeah, I don't know why they didn't have someone over the top after the first long touchdown, right? Because Carolina was playing for the playoff spot. If Carolina won, I think they would have been in the lead. All they would have to do is win their last game, and they would be the South champ, I think. But because they lost, that gave Tampa Bay a 2-game lead, and they locked it in. So, crazy. But you were saying, what did you think? You think he's done too?
I don't know. Like, I just have a hard time thinking that you go through all of that drama through the course of the year for it to be done now.
Well, they're throwing deep to him. And the last one, I think it was the last game, because then they had 2 interceptions when he tried to go to Evans. But it was almost like Tom Brady couldn't throw to him. And I thought maybe he just can't throw it. But those other ones were like pretty spot on. So I don't know if he's done quite yet. Russell Wilson's another one, though, where he looked like he's been done all year. And then against the Chiefs, he looked all right. So I don't know. Tom Brady's been in that system, though. So how could he really be done? They would just have to retire him.
Just bring him in as a coach.
Well, I was looking at the playoff standings here, and I was saying, Packers are gonna, if they beat the Lions, they're in whatever that last spot is. And so I was just thinking, who's going to be the team that ends up playing Tampa Bay, which would be Dallas right now? And if you're a Dallas fan, do you want to play them? If it ended right now, Dallas plays Tampa. I think it's in Tampa, right? I think they get the division winners the home field. If Dallas wins and the Vikings lose, then Tampa plays the Vikings, which is very winnable, right? Or no, they can't. Oh no, yeah, I'm wrong. So if Dallas wins, then Tampa would play the Eagles. I think because I forgot that the Eagles were in the East, so they would get or whatever number seed that would be. They would switch, not the Vikings. The Vikings are going to be locked into that 3 seed, I think. Unless they win and they get bumped to the 2. But you could also see a scenario where Green Bay beats the Lions and then plays the Vikings team they just blowed out again. They would have to go to Minnesota and play them. But that would be heart-crushing if the Vikings lost to the Packers twice in the last 2 weeks and won in the playoffs to end their season. It all comes down to what the Vikings and Niners do this week, though.
But just back to Mike Evans, the thing that I find so weird with him, and it's been the same way when he was at Texas A&M, he would go off and he would have these massive games where he was just outright dominant, and then he would disappear for however many weeks, and couldn't catch a ball, falling down, running bad routes, and you're just from a fantasy perspective, I would have a hard time taking a player like him because are you going to get 35 points or are you going to get minus 5 points because he dropped 10 passes and fumbled?
That's why I always played him. My rest of my teams are always really solid, Matt, as a top gun. So I just needed that little boost by him every once in a while. It's like me playing Stevenson. Is he going to get the ball? Is Mac Jones going to not throw him to the ball anymore? Which is insane. Because I mentioned it, I think last week I was looking at some of the stats where when the Patriots were winning, Stevenson was the leading receiver for the Patriots because Mac Jones was checking down to him and letting him get the ball in space. Since they've been losing, Matt hasn't been checking down to him. Hasn't been getting any receptions at all. The Dolphins game this past week was an anomaly because they don't have a quarterback. Bridgewater broke his finger in the game, right? So, just unlucky break for the Dolphins. And so, did you see the one play where the Dolphins or the New England was down in the goal line, and the clock ran out, and they didn't even call delay a game. They let them run the ball after 3 seconds had already been sitting there. It just got to 0 and just sat there for 3 seconds, and then they hiked the ball, and I think they got down to the 1 or something. But I thought, very fitting. very fitting. They tried to say that the clocks weren't synced up. Like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure they weren't, man. Anything else you have for the NFL?
No.
It's going to be a good week. I tried to lock in all the playoff scenarios last week. I think the only ones that I have, Steelers are still alive. They need the Patriots and Dolphins to lose. That means they need the Bills to beat the Patriots, I think, and the Jets to beat the Dolphins. Steelers would then have to beat the Browns. My prediction, Bills beat the Patriots, Jets do beat the Dolphins, but Deshaun Watson beats the Steelers and keeps them out of the playoffs, and then they have a parade, right, in Cleveland.
There's no way that Pittsburgh, like, if they don't make the playoffs, it's because other teams like won their scenario.
You don't think they're going to lose to the Browns?
I would have a hard time at this point believing that that's going to be a thing.
That's exactly what Ron Rivera said. Didn't work out for him. The other scenario is Jaguars versus Titans. Who do you think is going to win that one?
Who's playing the Jags? Tennessee.
Yeah, and your boy Malik Willis is done. They're starting Dobbs.
Dobbs said he never got a true shot in Pittsburgh. So
you're thinking maybe 5 turnovers, easy Jags win? I think that's what's going to happen. They rested Derrick Henry. He'll run for like 30 yards. That's my prediction. They'll shut him down, and it will be a complete waste. And that's the one coach where, like, I keep hearing Ohio State talk about like how they're going to get rid of Ryan Day to bring in Mike Vrabel. As a Michigan guy, I would not be afraid of Mike Vrabel. Like, as a coach, like, what does he want? Right?
Yeah.
His winning percentage is .593, which in the NFL is good, right? Winning record. He's won the division, their division twice in, 5 years? And he could win it. This is the 5th year. So in 4 years, he's won it half the time. He could win it again this year. I'm guessing they're going to lose to 2-5. And in the playoffs, then, he would make the playoffs 3 years. He is 2-3. He got 2 wins the first year he made it in 2019. They were only 9-7. They went on a miracle run, and they lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. The other 2 years, they bounced in the first round that they were in. So, like, Ryan Day has a way better winning percentage. Now, I'm not saying that he can't come in and be dominant, but, like, what coaching decisions is he making that I'm like, wow, what a great coach, right? It's like, oh, we're just running Derrick Henry all over them, and then that's it. And they can't even, like, you have Julio Jones and stuff, they can't even, like, get guys open. Didn't they have A.J. Brown, too? He's been awesome with the
Eagles.
Yeah. So, like, Mike Vrabel criminally underused him, right? I think he was there. Trying to look up his stats. How come it doesn't tell me? It doesn't tell. Of course, when I need the guys, it doesn't tell me him. He's with the Tennessee. He went over 1,000 yards 2 times with Vrabel. That's it, barely over 1,000. This year he's at 1,400. So, I don't know. Vrabel's the one guy. It's like, why be excited about a coach? They made fun of Harbaugh for not winning anything. Like, Vrabel has won even less. He hasn't even won the AFC. Right? So, that's my last thing for the NFL. Oh, no, I didn't do the NFC. The NFC was pretty straightforward. I think the only team that's up for grabs is the Packers, Lions, and Seahawks. So how it goes is the Packers win, they're in. If the Lions win, they're only in if the Seahawks lose. So of those 3 teams, who do you think makes it?
I'm going in on the Lions.
You think? Well, let's see who Seattle plays first. I would think that they play the Cards, but no, they play the Rams. So the Rams would have to beat the Seahawks for the Lions to make it, and the Lions would have to beat the Packers. I think the more likely scenario is the Seahawks make it, which is very on brand for the Lions, right? Best year, winning record, and they miss it on a tiebreaker. And the tiebreaker is because the Giants, dude, had that tie. Otherwise, I think they had the better conference record. If the Giants didn't tie the Commanders, the Lions would have got in over them. Unbelievable. But we don't know for sure. We'll check in next week. Anything else you had for the NFL?
No, that was it.
All right. I know I skipped high tempo earlier. Let's go into college football. The big news coming out. I mentioned Michigan losing to TCU. Harbaugh had originally said that he's staying at Michigan, not interested in the NFL right now at this time. So he's coming in to the offseason where he's going to go and make a push for Michigan to get back, third Big Ten title in a row. He hasn't been recruiting well because every offseason he does a dance with the NFL where, hey, I'm coming in and I'm half in, I'm half out. Last year it was a joke where he went to Minnesota with his staff, with some of the Michigan guys, told Michigan that he was done, and we got to Minnesota and it was an interview. Like he assumed that he had got the job, which is very anti-Rooney Rule, right? So they sent him home, and then he told Michigan that it would never happen again. And he took whatever the new contract was. And so now, this year, it's almost like, hey, it is happening again. What do you do if you're Michigan? Like, I don't think he's doing it for a pay raise. I don't think he's doing a James Franklin here. But I also don't know how much you put up with. He's not recruiting like Kirby Smart. He's not showing up in the playoffs. I've talked to some people around the program where it seems like they think that Harbaugh's mindset is like of Schembechler's, where you win the Big Ten and make the playoffs. That's like the goal. Of course, the goal is to win a national championship, but Harbaugh feels like they're at a disadvantage for whatever reason because of talent. But that's on him. That's half of his job is recruiting. So if he really doesn't think he has enough talent to win a national championship, then just go to the NFL. Right? Like, I don't care either way. It's clearly where this year it turns it on its head because Michigan's more talented than TCU. They lost the game 100% because of quarterback play and coaching. That was it. The coaches panicked. It was like watching Ohio State coaches out there going like all-out blitzes and shit, where it's like, you don't need to do that. You're only down to 3 points. What are you letting them hit a 90-yard drag route for? Because everyone blitzed. Like, that makes zero sense what they were doing. So I don't think it's in over his head. I don't know if he's like in the NFL where he thinks maybe he doesn't have to have all these younger coaches that don't have the experience. And maybe he's like trying to bring in NFL guys that have the ultimate goal of getting to the NFL. So he has a lot of coaches taking NFL jobs. I thought that was the issue last year, where the defense didn't look prepared versus Georgia. And then it came out that, like, yeah, he had already taken the Ravens job. So there's no way he was preparing for the Michigan playoff game. There's zero chance for that to happen, right? You can't be, like, interviewing for another job and be adequately prepared. You just can't. So I don't know at this point what Michigan does. I'm surprised an NFL team is going to offer him, but their rumors are that, like, Denver's ready to pay him $20 million a year. So, like, if he goes, you can't fault them for that, right? I don't know. What do you think he does? Do you think he stays in college or goes to the NFL?
I mean, if they're going to throw that type of money at him, and he's been flirting with it every year. I mean, he's back-to-back playoff appearances. Does he want the ring? Like, I don't know that he's doing enough transfer-wise to get him over the top. Like, there's an element that I feel like they're missing, and part of it is because of the Big Ten as a whole. Like, I think the loophole that the Southern teams are exposing is that you play these colder weather games where, like, you need to have a physical run downhill component, but it neutralizes because you're playing a lot of these championship games in warm weather areas. So when you have these teams like TCU that's like built around speed, it's like they're built more for that power run game, and it just seems like they're at a disadvantage when it comes playoff time.
I don't think that's a legit concern. I think the TCU thing having more speed was a myth. I mean, how many plays did Michigan's wide receivers just run down the field wide open? They couldn't cover Michigan's guys. I mean, the one, I don't know how they overturned the touchdown, because I think that's another thing that annoys Harbaugh is that, like, Joel Klatt was doing something, and someone else from one of, like, the ESPN or someone put together a stat where it's like, over the past 2 years, Harbaugh's only lost 3 games. 2 of those games, he had a touchdown taken off the board on a review where afterwards they apologized and said it was the wrong call. And so maybe he's just tired of dealing with, like, the amateur officials and shit. Because, like, he had to deal with that a good bit. But, like, if anything for Michigan's run game, it honestly just hasn't been the same without Corum. Like, Corum was legit a Heisman running back. When they lost to that, they couldn't ground and pound anymore. Some of that might have been on personnel. Like that fumble in the goal line, a linebacker took that handoff. So to me, that's kind of on Harbaugh. Why aren't you running to the running back? And if you don't think Edwards is a good power back, why not try to play to his strengths? I think he had a broken hand, so he still couldn't really catch the ball. That took a lot of plays away from him that they typically would have had. So honestly, I think some of the running stuff was just bad injury luck. But I'm also concerned that Harbaugh didn't have a recruit ready to go. But I don't think anyone could watch the game and say, like, TCU's guys were running down the field uncovered. I think on their long touchdown runs, I think they both were broken tackles. So if anything, that one guy they had was just a big beast. They couldn't tackle him. 11, was it?
Yeah.
I don't remember what number it was. Because, like, the one, even the one, like, the dig route, which he broke back as, like, a screen, if DJ Turner makes that tackle, Michigan gets the punt. I think that was third down. Instead, they're in zero coverage. They're running like an Ohio State defense. The blitz doesn't get there. They missed a tackle, and he's in the flat by himself. He takes it to the house for like 80 yards or whatever. So, like, to me, that's not like a speed thing. He was there. He just missed a tackle. So, I definitely think Michigan had more yards, more like wide open passes because they were just faster than TCU. So, same with like Ohio State. That's what made it was like a joke almost, where it's like TCU said, "Yeah, Michigan hasn't faced anyone with speed." It's like Ohio State is one of the fastest teams in the country every single year, and like Michigan's faster than TCU. Just look at the NFL. Like, look at the draft. So I don't understand where, like, whoever, it wasn't the A team from ESPN doing that game. They kept talking about TCU's speed because just look at the draft, buddy.
But their strength and conditioning guy was from the Baylor teams. So, like, when Baylor's guys, when like RG3 and Gordon and those guys were blowing the doors off the Big 12, like, there was a little bit to it.
I think a lot of it is the COVID thing, too. Like, TCU had a lot of seniors. Michigan's one of the younger teams. Ohio State, one of the younger teams. Hell, even Georgia, besides Stetson Bennett's 50th year, they're one of the younger teams because the issue is when you're on top, same with Alabama, you have like 8 guys getting drafted every single year. TCU doesn't have that problem. Who else was like Utah? No slam on them. Like Penn State playing them. Penn State has dudes getting drafted every single year, other than Clifford. So like they're going to be naturally younger than a Utah team or a TCU team that has a bunch of like 24-year-old dudes that are like 5-year seniors. Like what's Duggan? Like how old was Duggan? Because like I brought up JJ's quarterback play. This is his first year as a quarterback. So does Michigan expect him to make mistakes? Yeah, I would think so. This is Duggan's 4th year playing. When did he sign with them? Because I want to say he was like it. Does this have his age? He's 21 right now. Where is this thing? It doesn't say. So, like, that's the difference. You have a senior quarterback, a very senior-laden team, versus Michigan's playing like a crap ton of freshmen, and JJ, he's a sophomore, but it's his first year starting quarterback. That's the one thing where, like, if Harbaugh's looking at it, like you said, do you want to win a championship? This next year is the year. You got, I don't know if Blake Corum's going to come back, but all your other guys are pretty much coming back if you want them to. If you're like messing around with the NFL for another 3 weeks and players start to transfer out and then you come back, like that's my issue. That's what happened last year. Michigan had a lot of extra guys go pro that A, didn't get drafted, or B, didn't make the roster because they end up like in the 6th round or whatever. Because Harbaugh was like, yeah, I'm going pro, guys. And if you sign to get developed by Harbaugh, why would you come back, right? It's like, it's insane. That's why, like, they talk about Michigan and Penn State. Penn State's going to be the favorite over them is what I keep hearing next year. Penn State has a brand new quarterback. Michigan's the only team coming back next year that has a quarterback with any playoff experience. I think he threw for like 400 yards. The 3 mistakes killed them. 2 pick sixes pretty much did them in. They still had a chance at the end of the game. And that miscommunication snap, I think the 3 plays before it were dumb. But no complaints. Like they still had a chance to drive down and score and win. Ohio State should have won the game. So, like, there's no reason, like, someone can look at that team and said, oh, Ohio State's nowhere near as talented as Georgia. It's like, Ohio State should have won the game. They just missed the field goal. And it happened at New Year's right when the ball dropped. It was awesome. I had my 2 TVs up because I came home and I was like disappointed, and I thought, well, I guess I get to watch Ohio State make this kick right when the ball drops. This is going to be depressing to start off 20-23, and then it wasn't even close. It was almost comical. And then I knew all the Big Ten people are going to come out, and to me, that's what I wanted to bring. It didn't fit on the board here, Matt. But for you, what's more important, bowl performance or playoff performance?
Well, for me right now, it's just bowl performance because we weren't in the playoffs.
Well, Clemson wouldn't have done well at it either. Because, like, I think they had the top 4 teams. I think Michigan and Ohio State were definitely the other top 2 teams in the country. That was like a 1-score game. TCU couldn't stop them. Michigan, for whatever reason, went 0 coverage and kept letting TCU score, which was insane. And that was one of the things that stood out to me, though, is that both teams, I felt like, tried to sell out on stopping the run, but then left
so much wide open space to throw the ball that then it just turned into this Wild West shootout.
It was an awesome game, right? No one can say that, like, oh, that was a complete blowout. Like, that was a hell of a game where when the last minute of both games goes down to the final drive, you have a great playoff. I think that's the first time that's ever happened. The only other game that was close, I think, was the overtime game, right? Was it Georgia, Oklahoma or something like that? I want to say that was it. Like, so to me, they got the best 4 teams in. If they would have put Clemson in, like I had said, if Clemson had to beat South Carolina, they would have gotten in over Ohio State because the records would have been the same and Clemson would have been ACC champs. Georgia would have stomped them worse than Tennessee did. And then the ACC is like wandering around like, what the hell? That's why I want to see an expanded playoff. The 12 team, I'm still kind of torn on because I'm looking at it from Michigan's perspective right now. Undefeated, Big Ten champs, right? Only 2 teams are undefeated in the entire country. And they had to go to Arizona to play a game in like a dome on a grass surface, the only grass surface they played on all year. Why? That game should have been, and I know that this was a 4-year playoff, but I still think that opening round after the bye week should be on college campuses. Because I think they're going to get rid of the other bowl games, which to me, are other conferences going to even be good at this? Like Utah, Pac-12 got destroyed in their biggest games too. Penn State killed Utah, which bumps the Big Ten back up. Because like I had said, Matt, if the Big Ten won both playoff games and Penn State won convincingly, would they have been the 3rd best team? Are they going to end up number 6? How high are they going to go? Because they only lost to teams 3 and 4. Right? Who lost in front of them? Clemson lost, Utah lost, USC lost, Kansas State lost. Penn State would be like 7 at the worst. Right? That's a hell of a year for James Franklin. If the playoff expands, that's a playoff game. And Penn State's going nuts, and they're still alive. And then Michigan and Ohio State would have been, or Michigan would have been on their bye. Ohio State would have got to play someone else. And then who knows what the other matchup would have been. So that's what I want to see. The NCAA might get involved. They announced that they want 25% of teams to be in the playoffs for every sport. For basketball, because there are so many teams that play D1 basketball because of the payouts from the NCAA tournament, 90 teams, Matt. What kind of insane tournament is that? Like a lot of the other tournaments, like soccer and stuff, is like, what, 16? Or like field hockey, like some of the small things that like only the Big Ten and the ACC play, where it's like an ACC Big Ten invitational. Like field hockey and some of those, but lacrosse maybe. But if basketball goes to 90, I did the math for football. It's like 31 point something, so they would want 32 teams in the playoffs, which I wouldn't mind. Michigan would be in almost every year, right? Maybe we would see more parity. Like college basketball, where like a stud goes to a smaller school that he's nearby for reasons, you know. But other than that, it's like, what's going to happen going forward? Like, you're going to have a 12-team playoff. Teams like Tulane, would they have been in this year?
Yeah.
Would they have been the one team that got in?
I think they would have.
And they would have won. Right? Because they beat USC. So, like, if they win their playoff game, Why wouldn't Troy or UTSA get a shot, right? I think Troy won the game. So, like, why isn't Troy getting a shot? You can't say that USC or whatever is so much better. Tulane just beat them. I know it was like a last-second touchdown that they reviewed and he caught, but I don't know. What do you think? Do you hope they get rid of the Bulls? Because I'm tired of them.
I think having a playoff would be better. Like every other, I know there's a lot of pageantry with the Bulls that people want to like seem to be interested with, but I don't know.
To me, that's just dumb. It's the same people that are yelling at me to sit down, but you can hear that story if you go to our Patreon at patreon.com/southboundsports and sign up for the live stream. To hear me talk about that story, but that's basically what I think the people that want the Bulls are. Because otherwise, like, the other conference stuff, you talk about the bowl game performance, like, no one cares. No one cares Iowa beat Kansas or Kentucky, and then no one cares that Purdue lost to LSU. They just don't. Is LSU going to hang a Purdue banner? No. Purdue lost their coach. He's going to Louisville.
Although that was a shocker. Like, LSU beat them like they were about to get sanctioned by the NCAA.
But if you're Purdue, why are you focused? Your coach isn't there anymore. He's gone, right? They're bringing in a new staff. The new staff doesn't get to coach. So you're just there collecting your swag. I guarantee they weren't focused. That would have been an easy pick. Although I don't know if I think I did pick that in my bowl pick. I'm pretty high. A lot of my picks were bad. But again, you don't know who's going to play. You don't know what's going to happen coaching-wise. Like, if Harbaugh leaves and any of these other coaches that are like, didn't move, look at Michigan's roster. That's another top 5 roster. I would think Michigan would be at least, 2 or 3 next year to start off? Georgia, Bama, Michigan. After Clemson's performance, I don't think that they're going to get a bump because of their quarterback, right? Tennessee lost their quarterback. Isn't Hooker done?
Yeah.
Maybe USC with Williams gets a bump. Penn State, I don't think is going to get the Rose Bowl bump because Clifford's gone. So that's an unknown. And Ohio State has a new quarterback coming in. So I would think that it's going to be some mix of Georgia, Bama, Michigan, Ohio State.
Florida State.
You think Florida State's going to be that high, though?
Yes.
Their bowl performance, man, doesn't scream to me like a top 5 team coming into next year.
But I think with what they're adding from the portal, they're having Jordan Travis is already the highest rated quarterback of the year coming back. Heisman.
But the rankings, man, they're way behind on portal. I wouldn't even think Florida State would be ahead of Clemson. I would think I don't. It depends. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with Tennessee next year because aren't they going to have? Is Milton back? Is that their QB?
Yes.
I'm going to think Clemson's going to be 6. I think Florida State would be no higher than 8th. There's a lot of hype on Penn State. I think Penn State would be like 7 or 8. Wherever Penn State is, Florida State's going to be behind them.
Even in good years, I don't think Florida State starts the year off high. Like, there's just like even in the years where they've had quality teams, they just haven't been a team that like is in the media saying, "Oh yeah, you're definitely going to be one to do it."
And you don't have to be. I don't think Michigan last year and TCU this year were ranked. And they made the playoffs. I just think in terms of like team talent coming back. Now, if Michigan has a new coach, how far do they drop? Sonny Dykes, no one would have picked Sonny Dykes would be in a playoff, right? He didn't exactly light it up at Cal. Because people are saying like he's the next big coach. But he was 19 and 30 at Cal.
But that's all. I mean, but take that for what it's like. they were coming off a bunch of sanctions at SMU, and like with Cal, they just weren't getting the recruiting classes.
Well, TCU, I mean, they came in with what Gary Patterson built. How do we know that just wasn't like a hot team that he picked up? And then they come back next year back down to earth. I'm trying to look and see what they say. Trying to look and see what the ages are. The Athletic did a thing on them, but I can't really find it here. It's about them being not top 5 in top star class, but they're like just keeping guys. TCU was 32nd, but it's paywalled, so I don't know what exactly thing I read that said about them being a very veteran team. But the other thing I had that I mentioned earlier that I want to make sure I mention again is the targeting, just because I brought it up. They don't know what they're looking for, I don't think. The crown of the helmet is supposed to be the top of the helmet. If the player is looking down at the ground, that should be targeting every time, I would think. It's all about player safety, right? If the player's head's down at all, we saw 3 cases of it in the USC game, head down. The Georgia player that hit Harrison Jr., head down. Then the TCU guy that came in late on the Michigan final play, head down. And to me, this is like the same thing I brought up with Harbaugh. The first one, Roman Wilson caught the ball for a touchdown. It's on the goal line. At first, he bobbled the ball because it was down by his hip. But the camera, for whatever reason, they only had 2 camera angles or something ridiculous. So they didn't have a camera angle for it, of course, because it's a Michigan game, and they never have the right camera angle you need. For what was that, the Georgia game? We've been talking about it for since the spot where it looked like Barrett was a yard short, and JT Barrett was at him at Ohio State when he gave him the win. Miraculously, Matt, when Georgia needed a first down, they had that camera view. Did you see that? They had it queued up. They even had a line on the screen. And I thought if they've been listening to the show, they only pulled this out. Michigan's game, literally 3 hours ago, or whatever that was, no camera angle on their touchdowns. And so you would think it would be indisputable. It just stands, right? You can't overturn that. Wrong. The guy just makes a guess and says, I think he caught it. Even though it was down on his hip, whenever they did the freeze frame of him on the where his knee was down, he doesn't get full control till he's on his back. But they don't have the angle to show the bobble. You just see his arms and you kind of guess that he bobbles it, but I don't know for sure. But the play on the field was called a touchdown, shouldn't have overturned it. They said after, yeah, we shouldn't have overturned it. And then they noted some obscure rule where when the player starts to make the catch is where the ball should be marked. But then my thought, Matt, and this goes for you, Coach, what about sidelines? What if that wasn't the end zone? Would they have given him a catch? I don't think they would have. I think they would have said that he was bobbling the ball and didn't have it till he was out of bounds. And I would have to say, all right, yeah, I don't think he had it. It was low on his hip until he brought it up. He was sitting on the out of bounds line. So the difference was, one was a touchdown. If it was instead of the goal line, all the ball has to do is touch the goal line. And we just don't know because for whatever reason, they didn't have that camera view. When Georgia needed it, they found it.
They had it.
They're not even having it. They had the most crazy down the line view, better than the NFL. when Georgia needed it, right? It's like, it was insane. Thought, what the heck? But the targeting ones, to me, obviously in the booth for the Michigan game, they knew it was targeting. They called it in and said, yo, that's targeting. You should review it. Why not have the official in the booth that just makes the call? Right? Because, like, they called it in. The guy on the field obviously didn't want to overturn it because TCU was already celebrating, right? So, like, he's not going to make them get back on the sideline to run, like, 25 seconds or whatever it was of Michigan football. So he just says, like, nah, it stands, whatever. He's not going to bail them out. But, like, honestly, it should have been targeting. The same people that are saying that the NFL for the Hamlin situation should all be about safety, a lot of them are saying that the targeting shouldn't be targeting. And it's like, what's the rule? If you keep letting players use their heads when their heads are down, it's never going to be fixed. We're always going to see guys get paralyzed or hurt their necks, right? Didn't it just happen this year? Wasn't there a player that, like, almost got paralyzed again? I can't remember now. I think it was in the NFL. Put his head down, or maybe it was college. Put his head down, jammed his neck up. Hell, Derwin James just did it like 2 weeks ago. And both players were, like, down. And then I don't even know if they might have picked that one up too, but it's like, you either have to fix it by calling them every single time. There are already a crap ton of penalties and commercials. At least say you care about player safety and make it about player safety. Harrison's the best receiver in the country.
Too, like, you can't, if the defensive player is going to hit you in your chest and then you lower your head as an offensive player,
the Michigan guy was stumbling down. He was already tackled. The hit was late. Marvin Harrison was up making the catch. That defender launched at his head. If he hits him in the torso with the shoulder, he's probably not hurt.
I will say
he probably doesn't even catch the ball.
Game, I would have liked to have seen them continue that game, just because I don't know if it changes the outcome of the game at all.
I don't think it does either, because they were out of time.
Because I think Michigan was going to get a first down, an untimed down, and I don't know that it was going to change anything within the game other than
you just saw Hail Mary.
You would have saw Hail Mary / it would have ended the possibility of, well, this game ended on a call that should have been made.
And that's exactly what it is. A lot of people are saying that. And so maybe that's why Harbaugh's gone. Like, every single thing, I just typed in Michigan TCU, the first three. Controversial targeting review magnified after Fiesta Bowl ending. Second one, Roman Wilson calls bullshit on overturned touchdown as controversial calls hurt playoff game. Next one, Patrick Mahomes and others react to targeting non-call at TCU, Michigan. Charles Woodson makes his thoughts on controversial targeting decision. So the top 4 articles about the game aren't even about TCU winning, Matt. That's what's insane about the game. So, like you said, I don't think it would have changed the outcome. But now, that's everything everyone's going to talk about. The entire playoff on Monday, is it Monday? Is going to be about the targeting call against Michigan that wasn't called. It was picked up because it was called down as targeting, and they wiped it off. Which, to me, why even call down and waste time then? And then the Ohio State one where Harrison, the best receiver in the country, clearly is targeted. He's injured. He's done for the game. And they're like, nah. Which changed the game. And Ohio State still almost won. If they have Harrison, they win the game. Hell, what about the fake punt where that timeout came in late, Matt? Did you see that?
Yeah.
Someone said that Ohio State had 12 guys on the field, though. But I didn't see a flag, so maybe. But, like, that was a very late timeout call. How's he 3 yards past the line of scrimmage before that whistle blows? So, like, people say about the Big Ten, I would have liked to see the Big Ten make a statement. Kevin Wilson, I think that was the commissioner. He's quick to make a statement about Ohio State needed to be in the playoff after Michigan killed them. Where's the thing saying like, hey, the Big Ten, why is it always the Big Ten that gets these weird calls against them? Right? How many Georgia games are there a weird targeting call in the playoffs? Like against them? Never. Like it was last time, wasn't it Ohio State Clemson? Where it's like that other fumble targeting call? I'm pretty sure it was. Why is it always Big Ten teams? Like literally, I don't think there's any other, like all the controversy or with Big Ten teams getting targeting calls against them or touchdowns just phantomly removed. And like, yeah, Michigan fumbled on the next play, so chalk it up to a mistake by them, but I still don't understand how they overturned the call when you don't have the camera view. Like, isn't that the entire point of ESPN? Which ESPN did both games, right? I think they did.
Yeah.
How the hell do they have 18 cameras for the Georgia game but not for the Michigan game? Right?
Well, because they used them all for the Georgia game.
Ohio State had a conspiracy that Georgia rigged up all those extra cameras to spy on their warm-ups and stuff. And it's like, and they screwed you out of that game by giving them a first down because they miraculously had the view. Any other view, it would have been inconclusive. But they had a random view that was perfect that I've been saying that they need for years. Insane. That's my last thought. I think that's the one thing that I think they should clean up. And like to your point about like the Big Ten playing in the cold or whatever, that's why I don't think the Big Ten should want to play in these Southern Bowls anymore. The Arizona Bowl is not a reward. No player wants to spend Christmas in Arizona. They don't. Do you want to go to Arizona, Matt, on Christmas?
Pay me enough, yeah.
There's literally nothing there to do. Like,
I'll take your word for it.
So, like, what are you doing there? Arizona is dry. There's nothing to do. Like, oh, the fun is going to the game, and then you have like a weird winter dry heat. Like, no. California, like when you're out there doing like stuff in LA or whatever, yeah, that might be a reward of the Rose Bowl, but Michigan and Ohio State, they're better than that. They don't need the Rose Bowl anymore. Penn State, you don't need the Rose Bowl either. Tell them you're going to be in the playoffs and you want a home game in Beaver Stadium. TCU doesn't even play in a stadium with over 100,000 people. Have they ever? I guess, what, Texas maybe? So let them come to the big house if Michigan's undefeated and see what it's like. That's what I would like to see. Right? Because then, like, I'm not going to pay. I looked at some of the alumni things that they sent to me. It was like, what, $2,000 for like the 3-day pass with tickets or something like that? Or what did I say, $2,000? I think it was like $2,000 or something like that. If you just got the hotel, it was like $1,000 for the 3-day. And it's like, why? Just put it at the home stadium. I'll drive up. I know the area of like the school and where to get hotels and stuff. I don't know the area of the Fiesta Bowl. Let people go to the home games. That's what I want. Hell, if NC State had a home playoff game, I'd be there. Wearing a wolf mask, howling at the moon. Saying, no, as they didn't move the ball at all. That, you know what that NC State-Maryland game reminded me of, Matt? That 6-4 Iowa-Penn State game I went to. That one year, it's like, no one could score. And I was like, why did I come to this? That's what it reminded me of. Like, is anyone going to score? I couldn't take it. But anything you have for the final bell? I think I hit all my stuff.
No.
Just a shout out to Austin Eckler. I know I sent him a tweet. Thank you so much for playing this weekend. It was close. I was in like tie territory, which I had the tiebreaker, so it really wouldn't have mattered. But having you score 31 points to really put it away really meant a lot to me. So I hope you had a happy New Year, man. And Deshaun Watson, thanks for showing up and hitting Cooper when I needed him. I know I cut you, but maybe next year I'll draft you for $1 again and see what happens. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.